Ciao di Roma. You ready to do a podcast with me?
Yes, bring it on.
Bring it on, Madonna. Madonna mia.
Let's get
Lyrical, so lyrical, how he gets so lyrical.
This is lyrics.
Kicking lyrics right to you.
let's get
Skipping reels of rhyme.
Lyrical, from the lyrical.
these words of mine.
Podcast.
With Carice and Daniel. Hey, folks. Hi, Carice. Welcome back to Let's Get Lyrical with you and me.
Yeah, with Daniel and Carice.
No, I think it's Carice and Daniel, actually. I think that's how we ended up branding it.
Yeah, that's it. It's Carice and
Yeah.
Daniel. Of course.
Yeah, you're out front. It's
Ladies
alphabetical.
first.
Ladies, ooh, ladies first. Ladies, do you know that song by Queen Latifah and Moni Love?
I was like, this is an actual song. Like,
Oh yeah. From the
Okay,
golden hip
no.
hop era. Yeah, it's a great song.
That was
Play it.
that went over my head.
Chalk one up. That's one that's gone over your head today. We'll keep a running count. You did say in our first episode that or maybe it was in the trailer, that you want to play a game to like find songs that I don't know, and I think we have a few today.
Oh, cool. Okay, great.
So welcome back, everybody, to our little lyric podcast. One little PSA at the beginning that I didn't say last time, but is worth saying. We are actually the second podcast on the scene with the name Let's Get Lyrical. We started right around the same time as these guys, and it was just a total coincidence. You know, great minds think alike and pay tribute to Olivia and John alike. But there's another podcast called Let's Get Lyrical! With two musicians from New Orleans named Karen and Kyle, who have been really awesome about the fact that we came along with such a similar name. Ours is Let's Get Lyrical with Carice and Daniel, just to keep it really distinct, but you should totally check them out as well. But this is us, and we are doing this podcast all about song lyrics, and we're going to, every episode is on a different theme or maybe a different artist, but we'll be looking at multiple songs per episode. And today, what are we talking about, Carice?
We are talking about God.
Talking about
G-O-D.
the G-O-D.
Big G-O-D.
G-O-D, as opposed to dog, D-O-G. Very important to get the order right. Now, so what's your your
Definition.
relationship with the big guy or the big concept?
The big
And
concept
no,
is-
that's good. Start with your definition. That would be good.
Well, that's easier. Not.
Yeah.
it's too big of the concept, I think, to grasp. But I heard someone say once, it's like whatever was here before us and whatever will be after this is all gone. I guess that's sort of spiritually how I see it. Yeah. Let's
That's a
keep
good
it
one.
short.
No, I think that's a really lovely way into the idea. For me, it might have
What's
something
yours?
to do. Yeah, it might have something to do with. Well, look, I'm a Star Wars baby. I grew up learning about spirituality from Yoda and Obi-Wan.
Yobi.
Yobi, who the hell is Yobi?
It's a little
Yobi bear.
yogurty little creature. Little
Yeah,
white.
yeah, yeah.
sort
It
of-
sounds like a little mini yogurt cup brand. Start your morning off right with Yobi. Or Yoplait. Now, Obi-Wan and Yoda, who would talk about how the Force is what binds everything together. It's an organizing principle. It's a set of sort of, how there are physical laws like gravity. Well, I think there's like metaphysical laws. If there are metaphysical laws, that's what I would say God is. It's the presence that's beyond our understanding, but that certainly does seem to be there, and that
It's a
people.
force.
It's a force, and that human beings throughout history, on every single continent, before they had any contact with each other, have had a felt sense that this is a necessary and important core part of human life, and they've had access to it, and they've put a lot of time and dedication and practices into connecting with it. So whatever that is, to me, that's the version of God that I find most useful or compelling, and that I can relate to the most, as opposed to some
Guy.
what if God was one of us kind of Well, I guess that's more about bringing God
Come
down
on,
to
sing
earth.
it.
But yeah, I was hoping we could avoid that song. If I sing it now, can we maybe not listen to it during this episode?
Yeah, I am all for that.
And yeah, God is something good. What if God was one of... I hate that era of music, honestly, the like mid 90s, like just straight down the middle corporate pop rock. I'm sure Joan Osborne is talented, but I just that whole era just I tuned out at a certain point. Yeah.
I get that.
But anyway, bringing God down to earth as opposed to some sort of dude in the sky, which never made sense to me.
I never really got the whole concept of, so he's the father of Jesus. So I can get a bit too practical about things sometimes, or too logic. But
Yeah.
so he's the concept, but he's the father of all children, right?
Yes.
So not just the Jesus father.
No, Jesus is like his like several billionth child. He's not even that high in the pecking order chronologically.
So
If Adam was the first.
yeah. And so Adam, I also found this out very recently because I was raised atheist. So I found out very recently that Cain and Abel, but that we will come to later on, they are Adam and Eve's firstborn sons.
Yeah. I think they're only sons, no? Maybe not. That can't be the case. There must have been a daughter somewhere.
Yeah, and
Hold on
conception. I mean the
How did that work?
and
How did Cain or Abel have further kids who did they
oh wait. Okay, so Adam and Eve couple.
Yeah. First
They
man
were
and
the
woman,
first
yeah.
people.
Yeah.
They had 2 sons,
Yeah.
of which one was left over.
Left over?
Well, he killed his brother.
Yes. One remained. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So and then who did he meet
That's what I want to know.
to get the other babies
Exactly.
to make the monkeys?
Well, no, but God made the monkeys before the humans in the story. But anyway, that's pretty sus. We
This is
gotta.
also me as an atheist talking about this whole
Well,
concept
so
of
let me
God.
ask
I'm
you
not
about.
even.
Let me ask you about your atheism growing up. When you say you were raised atheist, do you mean you were raised with the absence of a religion, or were you raised with the sort of the
Proactive
doctrine of proactive atheism? Yeah.
Yeah, although I have to say though that my father was a son of a vicar, so very sort of seriously religious. So my dad, that was a complete rebellious act, of course, towards his dad. And then, funny enough, even though my dad was very openly a god, anti god, I guess, or anti concept church, whatever. When he died, like a few weeks, months before he died, all of a sudden, I don't know if I told you this before, but all of a sudden he had this little statue of Maria above his bed.
Wow.
So he got scared in the end. Because of course all that stuff came back, and he was, he thought, oh wait a minute, what if I was wrong? I think it's very touching to see, that thing from his youth coming back.
And are you clear that it was fear, or was it just sort of a spontaneous reconnection with something?
Who knows where he went off to? But I feel like because he was that was his whole intrinsic drive for everything he did was his fear of dying. So he was extremely fearful of dying. So I'm sure that had something to do with it. I mean, he even when I sort of go into a completely different story, but of course that's what this whole podcast is about. When he heard from the doctor, and I was there when they told him he hadn't, they couldn't do anything for him anymore. After that message, he kept trying. Whenever we saw this doctor, we kept trying to bring her gifts, and I could so feel that it was to sort of bribe her to say give him something back.
Mm,
to keep her under, as a friend.
mm,
It was very yeah, very sad to witness all that. Anyway, sorry, I'm
mm.
going off topic, but
No, it's quite on topic. I mean, that's a powerful thing to witness. How old were you when your dad died?
it was 2016, so a few years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, so I don't know anything about the Bible. Like Cain and Abel, I had to actually look up. Okay, and I'm not per se proud of that, because in my work it's very often very unhandy that I don't know anything about it.
Right. Have you ever had to play a religious character?
Well, happily, that Melisandre in Game of Thrones was just had a completely sort of made up religion. Of
Yeah,
course,
she was
the seven gods.
a pagan.
Yeah, so I didn't have to. I didn't have to know anything. Of course, there's references, I'm sure, about also to all sorts of things that I sort of didn't pick up on. But
Hmm.
uh, but in general, like in art history or in theater history, there's so much reference that I sort of never automatically got.
Yeah, I'm going to the Sistine Chapel tomorrow. I'm going to learn a lot,
Wow.
checking out the Vatican. And one of the popes just died, so I imagine that's going to be
Yeah.
quite the
Oh,
scene.
yeah. Being there must be
Being-
something.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I haven't seen any sort of mourning throughout the city, but I do expect there'll be something going on there. I just came from the Jewish one of the main Jewish synagogues of the former Jewish ghetto here in Rome, and that was beautiful. And I grew up Jewish. I had a bar mitzvah. Um, I like some of the Bible stories as myth,
Mm-hmm.
as self-conscious cultural sources of a way of looking at the world. And one of the things I
Yeah.
like about the Jewish tradition, my dad actually said this in an interview recently with an interviewer, a podcaster, Eli Nash, who grew up in the Orthodox Jewish community in Brooklyn. And my dad said that his favorite part of the Jewish tradition, aside from the prophetic tradition to speak out for justice, is the tradition of wrestling with and disagreeing with even the rabbis, even the text, and interpreting and and wondering about things and not taking things, that faith means something different than blind obedience or
Mm,
conformity. And
mm,
I always appreciated that about growing up Jewish. Of course, I didn't grow up Orthodox Jewish, but um, it's always felt like there's quite a bit of room to find my own connection with the idea. Although I've certainly gone way outside the Jewish tradition in order to have any sense of what that is. I don't talk about God a lot, but I have a felt sense of what the world of that word, partly
mm.
through doing, I've had some psychedelic experiences, and I would say it's not like they instilled any new beliefs in me, but they cured me of some old non-beliefs, put it that way.
What, like what?
Um, like plants don't have spirits. Like there's like just not having any experiential evidence for there being consciousness outside of human consciousness, the natural world having a consciousness, And I had
Mm-hmm.
plenty of experiences that I can never unsee the things I saw in terms of the depth of those experiences. They could not just have been concocted by my, you know, the, by my dream life or my subconscious life. I did, and feelings of being connected to something much bigger and more mysterious. But it's not like that then gave me a new worship system or something like that. It
Mm.
was more that it took away a certain feeling of isolation and loneliness and jadedness.
Yeah.
It was so yeah, that's how I relate to it. One of the things I love about all the songs we're going to be looking at is lyrics can come at God in so many different ways. And I'm curious to see which well, we have a list, so I already know which ones you brought, but you want to get into it and see what these
Yeah, let's do it.
lyricists have to say about God? All right. So just a second. Well, first, okay. So first, let's start with my favorite use of the word God in a lyric, not in the title. We're going to be sticking to songs with God in the title, but you know this song. I think we've talked about it, and it comes at the very end of
Oh yes.
Barcelona by Sondheim. So for those who don't know, this is from the musical Company, about a terminally non-committal bachelor turning 35 years old named Bobby. And this song is basically a hookup he has, a one-night stand with an airline stewardess, a flight attendant, as they'd be called now. But the song came out in 1970, or the musical came out in 1970. And they're lying in bed in the morning, and he keeps asking her, where are you going? The lyric is very spare. It's brilliant. Where are you going? Barcelona. Oh, don't get up. This is like very awkward morning after conversation in lyrics, which is Stephen Sondheim's one of his specialties, is like really capturing just contemporary dialogue in lyrics and music. And he keeps acting like he wants her to stay. He's like, where are you going? Oh, don't, please sit down. Do you have to go? Yes, I have to. No, you don't. Yes, I do. Blah, 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 blah. Right. And then he starts flattering her, and he says, look, you're a very special girl, not just overnight. Yes, you're a very special girl, and not because you're bright. And then she's like, what? He's like, not just because you're bright. And at a certain point, he calls her name. He says, April. And she corrects him, June. But then at the very end, we have this brilliant verse where, hold on, where is it?
Light 18.
Okay, here we go. This is Raul Esparza from the 2005 revival, 2006.
What you thinking?
Barcelona.
Oh,
Light 18.
stay a minute.
I would like to.
So
Don't be mean.
stay a
Don't be mean.
minute.
I can't.
Yes, you can.
No, I can't.
Where you going?
Barcelona
So you said
and Madrid
bon voyage.
on a
Good
Boeing.
night.
You're angry.
No,
I've got to
right.
report to.
Go.
That's not to say that if I had my way. Oh, well, I guess. Okay.
What?
I'll stay.
But. Oh, God.
It's really terrific. And the way Sondheim builds to that is so incredible. And if you just heard these lyrics done as a monologue, or not a monologue, a dialogue, a scene, it would work.
It's so much fun for an actor or singer to do this material. It's so much fun.
Oh yeah. Stay a minute. No, I can't. Yes, you can. No, I can't. Where are you going? Barcelona. So you said. And Madrid. Bon voyage on a Boeing. I mean, come on. That's such a good rhyme. Good night. You're angry. No, I've got to report to go. That's not to say that if I had my way, oh, well, I guess. Okay. What? I'll stay. But oh God. And I think I can say we've all been there, where we get what we want, and then we realize, or we get what we wanted the other person to think we wanted, or what we want to want, and then we realize we don't want it. Oh God. All right. So to our lyrics that have God actually in the title, why don't we start with a song that I know you and I both love.
It's probably in my top 10 of songs.
Period.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's
extraordinary.
Because I can never get sick of it.
Yeah. Well, I think there's musical reasons for that too, and we can talk about them.
I guess so,
let's just look at the lyrics, because I don't think I've ever sat down and paid attention to them.
always love you, but long as there are stars above you, you never need to doubt it. I'll make you so sure about it. God only knows what I'd be without you. If you should ever leave me, the life would still go on, believe me. The world could show nothing to me. So what good would living do me? God only knows what I'd be without you.
How they went from like Surfin' Safari and Little Deuce Coupe and Help Me Rhonda to writing this kind of music is just mind blowing. I mean, it's as mind blowing as the transformation the Beatles made. You know.
But that's also, I mean, was it Paul McCartney that was straight away jealous of this song?
Yeah, he may well have been.
Yeah, I think
And
so.
I think rightly so.
God only knows what I'd be without you. If you should ever leave me, the life would still go on, believe me. The world could show nothing to me. So what good?
All right, so for the sake of time, we'll cut it there because there's no more new lyrics. So a few things. What do you want to say about it, Chris?
Yeah, it sort of has that very romantic, beautiful harmony, satisfying sound, but then at the same time, it's basically I'm going to kill myself if you leave me.
Yeah,
sort of.
And delivered in this very depressed, kind of self-pitying but very sweet tone. But it's you don't quite get it. It really is a cry for help, you know.
Mm-hmm. So many love songs are, by the way.
It's true, but this one at least has the courage to be super honest and transparent about it. You know, like it's very vulnerable, but also kind of creepy. And you know what's remarkable? I mean, obviously I've heard the song a million times. I never noticed that the first line of the song is, "I may not always love you."
Yeah. And then it turns around.
But listen to this exactly. Listen to this turnaround. "I may not always love you, but long as there are stars above you, you never need to doubt it. I'll make you so sure about it. God only knows what I'd be without you." What does that lyric say to you? Just on its own.
Well, first it sounds like he's the one in charge of whether this is going to work out or not. Whether there's someone asking something of him, and he's trying to sort of what do you call that? Confirm? No. How do you say that? Confirm? No.
Defer? Like not commit?
No. Well, so funny enough, I used to think that he sort of said it actually felt a bit painful, the first line, unless it means I may not always, but what is always? Because always the stars are going to be there always. So in our concept of always, it's going to be always. But who knows if if everything changes and the stars are not going to be there, then I don't know.
Oh, well, that would be nice if that's what it meant. That's not what I get from it at all, actually.
What's your thing?
Well, so it could, I get two things. I'm like, here's the nicer version. I may not always love you, meaning like there are days when I'm not such a fan of yours. But that would be, I may not always like you.
Mm-hmm.
So I really do think it means what it sounds like it means. I may not always love you, but long as there are stars above you, you never need to doubt it. I'll make you so sure about it. I'm always going to, it's so important to me that you believe I love you. because if you
Mhm.
left me, I'd be useless. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to put my focus on how you feel about me because
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
can
yeah, yeah,
totally codependently need you to believe that I feel this way about you always. And I can't be relied upon to always love you because I'm a narcissistic, depressive mess. But as long as there are stars above you, I'm going to make sure that you're sure about it.
yeah. So it's going to be a real proactive task for him to make sure that she's not going to go by letting her know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been there. I know what that's
Mm.
like to like be ambivalent in a relationship, yet compulsively I'm still making sure that the other person is rock solid about me. It's crazy. It's totally crazy making. It's horrible.
Mm, mm,
I've grown out of that, I think.
mm.
Glad to say, but like that's why I interpret it that way because that resonates with a part of me, you know, an
Yeah, I guess
insecure
it's a
part of
little
me.
bit like when it's a little bit like when you're separated, you sort of don't want to be with the person because you're separated, but you also don't want this person to go off with someone else. So you sort of keeping them in a place that's not free,
Exactly. No, exactly.
essentially.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's kind of wild.
yeah. But that's I have always sort of listened to this as, yeah, I might not always love you. Oh, I have to be alert here. You know, what do you mean? I may not always love you. But then I've always been felt sort of relaxed by the fact, but as long as there's stars above you, which is always,
Yeah, but then
I'm
he just
fine.
says, but right, but then he does, but he doesn't say as long as there are stars above you, I'm going to be committed to you. He says as long as there's stars above you, you never need to doubt it. I'll make you so sure about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear you. I
It's
with
also
the
what you want to read into it. You know, it's also sort of so.
and I
Um,
love it when lyrics and music play against each other a little bit, you know, and the sweetness of the music is incredible. And another thing I really love about it is the rhythmic scan of it. And now I'm going to get a little lyric nerd technical
yeah,
here
go for it.
as a lyricist myself. There's this very, very consistent rhythmic motif throughout the song. It's uh, dun 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 dun. This rolling triplety feel,
Mm-hmm.
and then you know, and he sticks to it rigidly. I may not always love you, but long as there are stars above you, you know, the little variation on it, you never need to doubt it. And meanwhile, the melody is ramping up and up. Da 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 da. Da, 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 da. And then that was terrible, but you got it. And then with the hook, he takes the same rhythm, but he extends it. And God only knows what I feel about you. And
What I'll be.
that's that little
Right.
culmination on
Yeah.
the chorus hook. So based around the same rhythm, but with a few extra syllables. It's I think the technical instincts are really so because it's hypnotic. It sweeps you up and it builds and it builds and it is very compelling and convincing. And I think it would take a very boundaried person to be like, sorry, could we go back to your first line there that you said you may not always love me? I want to talk about that part before we get on to like your suicidality. Because I'm interested in that part.
Yeah.
Have you ever been with someone who you stayed with because you know there was a sense that without you they would you know it would be a dark turn? And if that's too personal to admit on a
Um,
podcast and in front of however many people are listening, please feel free to
there's
pass.
15 people that are gonna. Um,
Yeah, our
no.
closest friends and relatives.
Um. Not as such. No. I mean, I've stayed in relationships where I've felt like I should have gone out way before, but that's a different story.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But not like
Well,
I
so
was keeping them alive, basically. No.
got it.
No.
Well, so and interesting, we haven't even talked about God, but he uses God in the hook.
But also a
You know,
bit flippantly, like, oh, God only knows. It's more like a saying. It's not, I don't feel like he's actually connected to him. Do you think?
no, he's not. I mean, he's it's an expression. He's saying, you know, it's
Yeah, because
beyond
I
human.
say that as well.
Yeah, God
God
only
knows.
knows.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
don't even know who I'm referring to, basically.
Yeah. Oh, so thank you for saying God knows, because now we can look at a Tupac song of that title, which I'd forgotten about, which is really one of his best songs, I think.
Ah, bring it on. Lord or God?
Oh, Lord knows. I'm sorry. Lord knows. Wah, wah. Well, I want to listen to it anyway a little
Yeah,
bit.
go for it.
It's a synonym, damn it. I don't know how well you know Tupac.
No, I just know that he got killed, and I know one song.
Okay.
That's all I know. East Coast, West Coast, ghost stuff.
I mean, he's got another song called "Only God Can Judge Me," which we can briefly look at, and that's sort of a more defiant. So these two songs are actually an interesting contrast, because I think one is from "Me Against the World," the album that came out in '95, and then the other one's from "All Eyes on Me" from 1996. And in between that time, he went through a major life change. He joined. He got really in with Death Row Records, Suge Knight and Dr. Dre, and that whole scene in LA, which were basically a mafia in the form of a record company. And he embraced the whole thug life persona with a lot more glee, and he was getting more evil, and I don't mean he was actually an evil person, but it was a much darker turn, So this first song, God Knows, is him in a much more vulnerable state. If you know the song Dear Mama, that's on this album.
I think I know that song. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lovely song. So just check. We'll play a bit of Lord Knows. You just need to hear the first verse or two.
Damn. Another funeral. Another
Pac is choking on once more. I don't get it.
I smoke a blunt to take the pain out, and if I wasn't high, I'd probably try to blow my brains out. I'm hopeless. They should have killed me as a baby, and now they got me trapped in a storm. I'm going crazy. Forgive me. They wanna see me in my casket, and if I don't blast, I'll be a victim of the bastards. I'm losing hope. They got me stressing. Can the Lord forgive me? Got the spirit of a thug in me. Another sip of that drink. The Tennessee got me queasy. Don't wanna hurl, young nigga, take it easy. Picture your dreams on a triple B, and it seems don't underestimate the power of a fiend. To the homies on the block, slinging rocks with your Glock, put the tape in your box when you're running from the cop, and never look back. If they could be black, then they would switch, open fire on them bust ass bitches. And Lord knows, Lord knows, Lord knows, Lord knows, Lord knows,
Lord knows.
So it's really a lament, there's a sadness in that. And that, if I wasn't high, I'd probably try to blow my brains out. But then a year later, he's invoking God in the way that I think sometimes people do, where they're like, only God can judge me. Like, I don't need to be accountable to human beings because I've got God. And I love this song, but it's much darker. I mean, it's dark in a different way.
only God can judge me. That right? Only God, man. Nobody else. Nobody else. All you other motherfuckers, get out my business. Really? Perhaps I was blind to the facts. Stabbed in the back, I couldn't trust my own homies. Just a bunch of dirty facts. Will I succeed? Paranoid from the weed. And hocus pocus, try to focus, but I can't see. And in my mind, I'm a blind man doing time. Look to my future, cause my past is all behind me. Is it a crime to fight for what is mine? Everybody's dying. Tell me what's the use in trying? I've been trapped since birth. Cautious, cause I'm cursed. And fantasies of my family in the hurts. And they say it's the white man I should fear. But it's my own kind doing all the killing here. I can't lie, ain't no love for the other side. Jealousy inside, make them wish I died. Oh my Lord, tell me what I'm living for. Everybody's dropping, got me knocking on heaven's door. And all my memories of seeing brothers bleed. And everybody agrees, but still nobody sees. Recollect your thoughts, don't get caught up in the mix. Cause the media is full of dirty tricks. Only God can judge me.
out the second verse.
Only God can judge. I hear the doctor standing over me, screaming I can make it. Got a body full of bullet holes, laying here naked. Still I can't breathe, something's evil in my IV. Cause every time I breathe, I think they're killing me. I'm having nightmares, homicidal fantasies. I wake up strangling, dangling my bed sheets. I call a nurse cause it hurts to reminisce. How did it come to this? I wish they didn't miss. Somebody help me, tell me where to go from here. Cause even thugs cry, but do the Lord care? Trying to remember, but it hurts. I'm walking through the cemetery, talking to the dirt. I'd rather die like a man than live like a coward. There's a ghetto up in heaven in this hours. Black power is what we scream as we dream in a paranoid state. And our fate is a lifetime I hate. Dear mama, can you save me? And fuck peace, cause the streets got our babies. We gotta eat, no more hesitation. Each and every black male's trapped. And they wonder why we suicidal running round strapped. Mr. Police, please try to see that it's a million motherfuckers dressing just like me. Only God can judge. Only God can judge. Only God can judge.
Phew.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, I feel so sort of. It's almost. I don't know, I can't find the word, but I feel almost like dirty. What listening to this, it's sort of with all my privilege and stuff. It's also,
Yeah. I mean, that is a dynamic of being a comfortable and, let's face it, white rap fan. You're listening in on, but really for anybody who grew up in a situation more advantaged than this, but especially those of us on the other side of the chocolate vanilla divide, as Cornel West would say. But just in terms of sheer lyrical skill and poetry, to me, I hear the doctor standing over me screaming, can I make it? Got a body full of bullet holes lying here naked. Still, I can't breathe. Something's evil in my IV because every time I breathe, I think they're killing me. And he's so good with these pauses. He's like, still, I can't breathe. I'm having nightmares, homicidal fantasies. I wake up strangling, dangling in my bed sheets. I call the nurse because it hurts to reminisce. You hear that little internal rhyme there? I called the nurse because it hurts to reminisce. How did it come to this? I wish they didn't miss. Hope people don't mind me doing the little cadences here. First of all, I'm a hip hop karaoke 2-time finalist in New York City. So I
really
love rapping. But also, you can only really appreciate rap lyrics if you appreciate the cadences and the pauses and all of that. It's part of it's not just words on the page, I'm walking through the cemetery talking to the dirt. I'd rather die like a man than live like a coward. And then by the end of the verse, he spins into this incredible political dissertation. And he had this side to him. There's a ghetto up in heaven and it's ours. Pause. Black power. Pause, is what we scream as we dream in a paranoid state. Again, one of those internal rhymes. And our fate is a lifetime of hate. Dear mama, can you save me? And fuck peace. So the minute he goes to like a vulnerable thing with dear mama, he remembers like his militant side. And his mom was a militant Black Panther, or is, I think. Yes, his mother is still alive. His aunt was Assata Shakur. Who was like pursued by the FBI for being in the Black Panthers. Anyway, because the streets got our babies, we got to eat. No more hesitation. Each and every black male's trapped, and they wondering while we're suicidal, running around strapped. Mr. Police, please try to see that it's a million motherfuckers stressing just like me. Only God can judge me, right? It's in the Myth of Normal, the book my dad and I wrote. We talk about the compassion of context, which is not just feeling for somebody, but understanding where they're coming from before you try to even help somebody. You have to fully extend your empathic imagination to understand the history and the background, the multi-generational stuff. And that's what he's saying when he's like pleading with a police officer, please try to see that what you see on the surface of our behavior, there's something going on underneath it and way stretching back a long time.
Yeah, but that's of course the sadness that there's There's no time for that. There's no space. There's no room. There's no empathy.
No, exactly. So
It's
actually,
it's
I said
yeah.
that this song was cynical, but it's actually not. Now that I look at it again, it's very sincere and spiritual and self-assertive too.
What's that word?
Self-assertive.
Oh, self-assertive. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, because there's so much sort of toughness in that sort of, and then he says a bit before, a bit going back, just says then, no, going down, 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 um, here, because even thugs cry. Then he becomes so desperate for like 2 lines or 1.5,
Yes.
and so small and vulnerable, and then yeah, and then but to do the Lord care.
Right. And then he bucks up. I'd rather die like a man
Ah,
than live like a coward.
yeah,
I mean, when I think about it, him and Biggie are often held in, as the twin fallen gods of hip hop. And Biggie had his vulnerable songs too, but Tupac's heart, he just wore it right on his sleeve, and he could flip from talking about crying to screaming bloody murder or middle finger up in like a heartbeat. He was such a complicated guy, and he was able to portray it in his lyrics and in his delivery. Yeah, the last verse is much more sort of internal to the game. It's sort of calling out snitches and fake friends and enemies. Now, this album happened after there'd already been an attempt on his life, and he had
right.
been in the hospital. So that verse about flatlining and the doctor standing over him, that's actually based on an experience he'd already had, which really did sour him. It made him a lot more jaded. So that's one way of invoking God. Where should we go next?
Ooh. Um, what else do we have? Like I only had like, oh, we have God's Comic, we have God's Song.
Yeah. Why don't we do Randy? See, here's a song I don't know. Randy Newman.
Oh, good.
And I've had people favorably compare my songwriting to Randy Newman's, which is
Oh, really?
a total compliment.
Wow.
And I don't know him that well, so I'm glad that you
Brought him up. I mean,
brought
I
him
have
up.
to say, just before we're going to listen to this, this is a song like when I went to theater school and I went to this sort of musical theater school,
Mhm.
a song that some people, it was in the repertoire of some people in my class. And I don't even remember if I sang it myself, but it was one of those classics that you had to do, you perform in front of the class.
Really?
Yeah. So there was like, there was a piano player there, and you'd perform this for the class, and then the teacher would talk about it, how you could, what they thought you did with that, and how you can do it differently. And this is where I got my song skills. Not really, because I'm not a technical singer necessarily, but it was always about the story and whether you could bring this song across.
Well,
So that's my memory to this song, but
oh, how
also
nice.
now thinking looking at it again, whether I even got the gravity of that back then,
Hmm.
what the song really was about. But let's see.
You were how old?
Just in theater school, like in early 20s,
Okay.
18, 19, 20.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know that Randy Newman is definitely one of these writers who makes you listen to his lyrics, and I have hella respect for that. So let's listen. So it's in C minor, I can tell you that.
Cain slew Abel, Seth knew not why. For if the children of Israel were supposed to multiply, why must any of the children die? So he asked the Lord, and the
Lord said, man means nothing, he means less to me than the lowliest cactus flower, the humblest yucca tree.
Wow.
Chases round this desert, 'cause he thinks that's where I'll be. That's why I love mankind.
Holy shit.
I recoil in horror from the fineness of thee, from the squalor in the filth, in the misery. How we laugh up here in heaven, the prayers you offer me. That's why I love mankind. Christians and the Jews will have the jamboree. The Buddhists and the Hindus join on satellite TV. Pick the 4 greatest priests, and they began to speak. Say, Lord, a plague is on the world. Lord, no man is free. The temples that we built to you tumble into the sea. Lord, if you won't take care of us, won't you please, please let us be? And the Lord said, and the Lord said, I burn down your cities, how blind you must be. I take from you your children, and you say, how blessed are we.
My goodness.
You all must be crazy. Put your faith in me.
That's a terrific
That's why I
punchline.
love mankind.
And then this.
You really need me. That's why I love
Really need me.
mankind.
You really.
Wow.
Oh, it just
Talk
gives me
about-
goosebumps.
Talk about a sub-dom relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anno dominatrix.
So what do you say?
Well, it's very cynical and
Mhm.
and dark and sly.
Yeah.
Man means nothing. He means less to me than the lowliest cactus flower or the humblest yucca tree. I mean, this is when you know you have a real lyricist. He's not going to just say the humblest. Pick some generic flower. He's actually he's talking an Old Testament God, so he picks desert flora. The yucca tree, the cactus flower. He chases around this desert because he thinks that's where I'll be. You all must be crazy to put your faith in me. How we laugh up here in heaven at the prayers you offer me. That's why I love mankind.
Yeah, it's yeah. But it's as much as he's sort of makes it a bit of a villain. Of course, it's beyond that. It's also just putting everything back at the humans themselves. Like it's just
Yeah.
it's not just God is bad or everyone's crazy to believe in God. It's just that the way he sort of flippantly talks about stuff is how we look at stuff as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, you do feel like Newman is showing us a mirror of like, look at what we normalize and what we overlook and what we bypass by means of spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about spiritual bypass. Like, I don't know that he's saying the idea of God is bullshit, but he is saying there's a disconnect as we pray and worship and glorify and then get on with our lives and don't connect the dots between, like, we must not be very right with God if this is how we're, like, either God is a cruel sadist or we have lost the plot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it might be. I hope it's the latter, because I think it's even
Yeah.
smarter. And of course, it's also like, where's your own responsibility? Like, why blame me? Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
This-
Absolutely. And we keep crawling. That's why I love mankind. You keep crawling back.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do to you that'll make you stop outsourcing everything onto me and believing that I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
Well, that's very that connects well to the next song that I have on my list.
Mm-hmm. It's also the music, of course, is so sort of sober and funerally.
Yeah, funereal. It's this dark minor blues, which is
Yeah.
Newman's specialty. He's so good at taking bluesy musical ideas and inverting them and subverting your expectations with the lyrics.
Mm-hmm. And there's always that sort of heavy, melancholy,
Yeah.
dark stuff hanging around him. Even in his fun songs, obviously, there's always that tone.
It's not quite the song from Toy Story, is it? You Got a Friend in Me?
That's probably his. Yeah, he's probably laughing about that song.
He has one song that makes me cry every time I hear it called When She Loved Me.
I don't even know if I know that.
Oh, it's beautiful. I'll play it for you some other time.
The Real Emotional Girl always gets to me as well. Anyway.
Yeah. All right. So this is XTC, a British band that I'm getting to know the more that I realize how amazing they are. And this is from the human side of things, kind of answering the challenge in from Randy Newman.
Dear God, hope you got the letter and I pray you can make it better down here. I don't mean a big reduction in the price of beer, but all the people that you made in your image, see them starving on their feet because they don't get enough to eat from God. Can't believe in you.
Dear God, sorry to disturb you, but I feel that I should be loud and clear. We all need a big reduction in amount of tears. All the people that you made in your image sit and fighting in the street, 'cause they can't make opinions meet about God. I can't believe in you. Did you make disease and the diamond blue? Did you make mankind after we made you? And the devil too.
Very musically sophisticated, huh? It's like if the Beatles went to music college.
Dear God, don't know if you noticed, but your name is on a lot of quotes in this book. As crazy humans wrote it, you should take a look. don't believe in. I won't believe in heaven, hell, no saints, no sinners, no devil as well. The pearly gates, no thorny crown. You're always letting us humans down. The wars you bring, the babes you drown, those lost at sea and never found. And it's the same the whole world round. The hurt I see helps to compound. The Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. It's just so is unholy host. And if you're up there, you perceive that my heart's here upon the sea. But there's one thing I don't believe in.
It's you. Dear.
Take that.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, there's so many things you can say about this, of course. We're looking at the
Dear God,
lyrics
so
now.
we'll read it out so our listeners can hear it. Dear God, hope you get the letter, and I pray you can make it better down here. I don't mean a big reduction in the price of beer. It's a really funny way to start things out. It starts off light. You actually think it's going to be a lighthearted kind of, and you got a little kid singing it,
Yeah.
so it's got a kind of cutesy thing. I had no idea how dark it was going to get. But all the people that you made in your image, see them starving on their feet because they don't get enough to eat from God. And he does that trick again in the second verse. See them, and all the people that you made in your image, see them fighting in the street because they can't make opinions meet about God.
Mm-hmm.
So like what he's doing with that little turnaround is he's saying to God, we're suffering down here because of you and about you.
Even our fights are about you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even that you've abandoned us; it's that you're fucking us up. As
Yeah.
Al Pacino said in Glengarry Glen Ross to Kevin Spacey,
I love that film so much. Oh my God. Yeah.
"Why you are put here is to help us."
Does that seem clear to you? To help us, not to fuck us up.
Ferry, you company man.
Oh, I love that film. But it's also, I also feel I actually heard it as this is this younger boy. It's the same guy but older, and he's still not believing. But who knows? It doesn't matter.
But even angrier.
Yeah, but of course, yeah. And this is before it was about beer when he was 16,
Yeah.
and now it's like about bigger stuff.
Oh, I love that.
I mean, I don't know if it was meant like that, but that's how I heard it.
What I love about our podcast is we can make it mean whatever we make it mean.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the great thing about lyrics. Did you make mankind after we made you and the devil too? And then I actually thought when I first heard this that it was going to kind of end after this verse. Dear God, don't know if you noticed, but your name is on a lot of quotes in this book. That's a fun little, tricky rhyme. Notice, but a lot of quotes in this book. And us crazy humans wrote it. You should take a look. And all the people that you made in your image. And I love how he keeps that line constant in every single verse, still believing that junk is true. Well, I know it ain't. So do you, dear God. And he starts to fade out. I can't believe in. I don't believe in. And then he goes into this pounding section, this rant. In the middle of it, there's this extended rhyme, which always has the effect of such build, I mean, the music builds, but the pearly gates, no thorny crown. You're always letting us humans down. The wars you bring, the babes you drown, those lost at sea and never found. And it's the same the whole world round. The hurt I see helps to compound. That's a technique, I think. It's a device of building tension. Then he releases it with the most blasphemous lyrics in the whole song. The Father, Son, and Holy Ghost is just somebody's unholy hoax. And if you're up there, you'll perceive that my heart's here upon my sleeve. If there's one thing I don't believe in, it's you, dear God. But the fact that that's the irony. The fact that he is singing it to the God that he doesn't believe in.
Yes, exactly. But it's also, I also, when I read and hear it, I'm like, I feel a bit bad for God. It's like, how the fuck can you live up to all the expectations? You're never going to be doing all the things right. B, did he appoint himself? Like, we wanted to believe in him.
Yeah,
We made that up.
exactly.
Or we want to divide the world in good and evil, and God and the devil.
Absolutely.
So I'm also a bit like on the other side, like, then don't believe in him, because then you can't be disappointed. But yeah, for me to say, because I'm an atheist.
Well,
Or I don't know if I'm an atheist, but you know what I mean.
what I love is that Randy Newman's song, sung from the point of view of God, makes you have empathy for humans, and this song, written from the point of view of an angry human, makes you have empathy for God.
Yeah. But also even in Randy Newman's song, I also feel a little bit like, fuck you, people, you fuck it up yourself.
Right, you said that responsibility thing. It's true.
Yeah. So even though I'm the last one to say, oh, let's all put our faith in God and stuff, not at all. But I I'm looking at it from a slightly different angle. But it's of course it's easy again for me to say, because I've never put any faith in him anyway. So I don't have that sort of expectation of something that will save me or is responsible for stuff. So
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I can't really relate to it. I can relate to something like, why is no one saving us? Why is there was a promise of someone, something good. It's not up there. It is not up there. It's my opinion.
Yeah. As Killer Mike said, if God really exists, if God is real, he exists inside, And
that's the only place where he is, where you can find it, him, whatever, she, him, they.
Him, her, they, it. God, self. All right. Well, so here's a song that I think kind of splits it actually doesn't split the difference between the two, but it takes a slightly different angle. A more it's Tori Amos, so she's always got an interesting sideways take, and this one has a kind of feminist angle to it. So let me get it up here. And the song is just called God.
God, sometimes you just don't come through. God, sometimes you just don't come through. You need a woman to look after you. God, sometimes you just don't come through. You make pretty daisies, pretty daisies. I gotta find what you're doing about things here. The fuel which is burning gets a little toasty. What do you know? I gotta find where you always go when the wind blows. God, sometimes you just don't come through. God, sometimes you just don't come through.
Funky. Yeah.
You need a woman to look after you. God, sometimes you just don't come through. Well, tell me you're crazy, maybe then I'll understand. You got your 999 in the backseat, just in case. Oh, hey, you gone south, well, baby, love your new folks. Hey, I gotta find why you always go when the wind blows. Will you even tell her if you decide to make the sky fall? Will you even tell her if you decide to make the sky? God, sometimes you just don't come through. God, sometimes you just don't come through. Do you need a woman to look after you? God, sometimes you just don't come through. Do you need a woman to look after you? God, sometimes you just don't come through.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch the actual video. It looks amazing. We were looking at the lyrics,
Yeah.
but those, I mean, I think that's such an incredible song.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so unaware of her. Sadly, I have to say.
I'm late to her. I'm very, very late to her. This album, Under the Pink, is the first one that I've really gotten into. It's the one with Cornflake Girl on it, and this is the second song. It's, I mean, just the strange sideways angle. And she grew up, I think, the daughter of a minister. You
Oh,
know,
really?
yeah, or maybe, yeah. Maybe I'm wrong. She was definitely like a classically trained kid, but she definitely grew up with a lot of church in her life, I think.
Right.
And there's a lot of Jesus imagery and like erotic God imagery in her songs. I mean, her first single was called Crucify. You know, why do we crucify ourselves every day? And talking back to God and questioning God in very sly, subversive ways that I think only a woman could write. Like, God, sometimes you just don't come through. It's not quite XTC being like, fuck you, God, you know?
Yeah, it's so sort of subtle and sort of a bit not passive aggressive, but
yeah, it's chiding, and it's almost talking down to God, cutting
yeah,
God down to size, you know? And, you know, do you need a woman to look after
yeah,
you?
I like that. I like that.
You know, a few witches burning gets a little toasty here. That's such a Tori Amos line. Well, tell me you're crazy. Maybe then I'll understand. You got your 9-9 iron in the back seat just in case. So basically, he's like a golf playing like deadbeat. You know, heard you've gone south. Well, babe, you love your new 4-wheel. I gotta find why you always go when the wind blows. And then she reads from the Bible this very misogynist line: "Give not thy strength unto women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings." Basically, that's the original "bitches ain't shit but hoes and tricks." You know, like don't don't trust a woman. We don't love you, hoes.
Yeah.
And then this fantastic bridge: "Will you even tell her if you decide to make the
Yeah.
sky fall? Will you
Yeah.
even tell her if you decide to make the sky? Period."
Yeah.
So smart.
It's pretty smart. Yeah. Yeah. But it's also funny because, again, there's, obviously a background there,
Yes.
which I can, I can see it I can see it in that context. But personally, I can see where she's coming from and I understand. But for me, again, like I'm like, why do you even talk to this guy? Why are you even talking to him?
Well, I think when you grow up with this, having this imposed on you,
Well, that's
and
what I
it
mean.
be
Like for me, it's
and
easy to say
yeah,
because I don't have that.
exactly, yeah. But also, what's interesting is that people who leave the church or any religion, who grow up in it and then leave it, they still. I think a lot of people find it difficult to reject it completely because
Mm,
they've had a lot of important experiences, but they've developed a relationship with this thing, even if it's fraught.
hmm
Like
And
it's like,
also generational. It's intergenerational as well. This, of
oh
course.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. For some reason, I don't know why that then sort of stops with me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Who
don't know if
knows?
that's I don't know if that's a bad thing.
I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing. And of course, it's up to each person. Some people don't grow up religious and they find religion. So who knows? Maybe your son will
Mm,
end up being a
mm.
vicar as well. Maybe it skips a generation or two
Because
generations.
I can understand the urge and the I do understand that. It's just that there's no reference in me personally. I have no
Yes.
zero reference, which is also again like a lack in my development. I find
Well,
a
so
little bit.
you would have to have a direct divine revelation. You'd have to be visited.
I think so. Who knows? It may well happen to me because I just, when I was in New York last, I just gave all my money to some person who saw all sorts of stuff in me. So I'm very susceptible to lots of things. So,
You
never say
listening,
never.
God? You listening, God? You got a willing dupe right here. Easy mark.
Because I think he is
Come on.
also, if he's there, I think there's also a really nice side to him. But there's also beautiful stuff out there. But anyway, you know.
Should we listen to one more "Shaking Your Fist at God" song?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So this is also from a musical. I have a few songs from musicals today. Now this, have you seen Book of Mormon?
Yes.
So, this is an incredible song. I think. I think it's. I laughed to tears the first time I heard this.
In this part of Africa, we all have a say. Whenever something bad happens, we just throw our hands to the sky and say, Has Adiga Ibowai.
Has Adiga Ibowai?
It's the only way to get through all these troubled times. There's war, poverty, famine.
And of course, this is their play on Hakuna
Makes
Matata.
it all seem better. There
Like,
isn't enough
self-consciously.
food to eat. Has Adiga Ibowai. People are starving in the street. Hasadiga Ibowai.
Well, that's pretty neat. Does it mean no worries for the rest of our days?
Kind of. We've
There
had
it
no
is.
rain in several days.
Kind of.
And 80% of us have AIDS. Many young girls here get circumcised. The clits get cut right off. Well,
And so we say up to the sky, Hasadiga Ibowai.
I do wonder how I'd feel about the show if I was Ugandan, but I bet it must have Ugandan fans. I mean, the good thing about the show is that, true to South Park style, everyone
is-
gets totally skewered.
Yeah.
You know, and ultimately, well, I'll talk about it afterwards.
now you try. Just stand up tall, tilt your head to the sky, and list off the bad things in your life.
Somebody took our luggage away.
Hasadiga Ibowai.
The plane was crowded and the bus was late.
First world problems.
When the world is getting you down, there's nobody else to blame. Raise your middle finger to the sky and curse his rotten name.
Wait, what? Hasadiga Ibowai. Am I saying that? Excuse me, sir, but what exactly does that phrase mean?
Well, let's see. Ibowai means God, and Hasadiga means fuck you. So I guess in English it would be fuck you, God.
Hasadiga Ibowai.
What? When God fucks you in the butt.
Hasadiga Ibowai.
Fuck God right back in his cunt.
Hasadiga Ibowai.
The build of the comedy, the rollout is just fucking genius.
Fuck you, God.
Excuse me, sir, but you should really not be saying that. Things aren't always as bad as they seem.
Oh, really? Well, take this fucking asshole Matumbo here. He got caught last week trying to rape a baby.
What? Why?
Some people in his tribe believe that having sex with a virgin will cure their AIDS. There aren't many virgins left, so some of them are turning to babies.
But that's horrible.
I know. Here's the butcher, he has AIDS. Here's the teacher, she has AIDS. Here's the doctor, he has AIDS. Here's my daughter, she has a wonderful disposition. She's all I have left in the world. And if either of you lays a hand on her, I will give you my AIDS.
If you don't like what we say, try living here a couple days. Watch all your friends and family die. Asadiga Ibo White for you. Asadiga Ibo White. What you got in the ass, mouth and contact. What you got in the ass, mouth and contact. What you got in the ass, mouth and contact. Fuck you in the eye. What you got in the ass, mouth and contact. What you got in the ass, mouth and contact. What you got in the ass, mouth and contact. Fuck you in the eye.
I mean, the thing about them is, if they didn't take things all the way, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, it's
But
just
they
going to
take
say,
things-
like,
Yeah.
they so go over the board and further, they can't go back, so they have to, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
incredible. It's incredible. And Bobby Lopez co-wrote the score with them. But I mean, you know, from the show, and he really, I think, gave it that musical theater sheen. But they're big musical theater fans, and that break in the middle of it, where the chieftain, who, by the way, have you ever watched The Wire?
No.
Okay, that actor was on The Wire, a very different
Right.
character. He played a Nation of Islam assassin named Brother Muzon. But anyway, where, you know, here's the butcher, he has AIDS. Here's my daughter, she has a wonderful disposition, you know, which is an important plot point where we introduce her. So even in the middle of a fun comedy song, using that real estate to move the plot forward is it's very well crafted, you know. But
Yeah.
you know, this is, I think, having the most fun of all the talking back to God songs.
Oh man, they must have had so much fun making this.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine being in the original cast or being in the cast at all.
Yeah. I saw it twice and loved it twice. Like, it was the main, what's that character what's that song that the suppressed gay?
Oh, Turn It Off.
Yeah, I love that song.
Oh, yeah. Every song is, and the song I Believe and I Am Africa.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Well, it's this We Are the World parody where it's basically
Yeah.
like, I'm a white European and like I am Africa. I am the gazelles on the Serengeti. I am the Lion King. You know, Africans are African, but I am Africa. It's about white people, you know, getting their identity from other people's cultures.
Yeah.
And speaking of what you were talking about earlier in terms of humans making God and taking responsibility for that, the turn that I didn't see coming at the end of the show, which I thought really redeemed it, not necessarily that it needed it, but it could have just been a crude, it could have left me with sort of a dirty feeling, like also having fun at the expense of these poor miserable people with AIDS and talking about female circumcision. Like, it's when you actually think about it, and most of the audience is white, you know, so there's a kind of inequality to it, and the creators were all white. But the plot twist that I absolutely love is that when the schlub, Elder Cunningham, starts lying and making up this whole myth about, he basically he tries to give them a version of the history of Mormonism that they'll relate to, and he makes up all this stuff about Joseph Smith having AIDS and fucking frogs and fucking babies to try and cure his AIDS and all this stuff, and they all get into it, and they do this, and then the church comes, you know, the elders come to Uganda, and the Africans put on this play for them, this pageant, and they act it out, and they're all horrified, but it turns out the Africans know it's bullshit. They know it's just a story, but they like it. Like it does something for them, but they know full well that it's made up, much more than the Mormons actually do. And they're connected to a sense of the mythic that you choose what to believe based on what actually gives you meaning and empowers you. And I found that actually really, really touching at the end of this crude, vulgar, sometimes cruel show. It actually has a real heart to it, which is a real accomplishment.
That's true. Yeah.
That connects to what you were talking about, right? You were talking about how like we made him up, so why don't we take responsibility for the meaning we make about him? And that's exactly what they do.
Yeah.
And so
I
in the
forgot about
end,
the ending, but it's true. Yeah.
It's in the end, it's not a show that hates religion. It's just encouraging us to not take ourselves so seriously.
And we're in the same boat. Like we all do that. It's not like that group of people is crazy because they are worshiping. We're all looking for something. But
and you know what? And even the most hardcore atheists are some of the most fundamentalist people I know. Like there's a kind of worship of rationality and science and
which is actually not me. It's not me. Like when I say I'm an atheist, I was raised without religion or without knowing of religion, and it not being in my surroundings. But when you look at Ricky Gervais or something, like that is,
or Sam Harris or these guys.
Yeah, those fundamentalists that I'm like, as much as I adore him.
Yeah.
And I, to a certain extent, I am with him. But then when it comes to spirituality is where I lose him.
Well, because he becomes his David Brent character. Oh, am I triggering you? Oh, am I? Oh, I'm being
I love
naughty
that British
now.
accent.
Yeah. So, religious people, if you're offended, I don't care.
Yeah.
That sounded a little Australian. But that's sort of he's just a bit of a twerp when it comes to that stuff. And he has his dogmatic belief that there is no God.
Yeah, that it's just over. It's just dirt, and it might very well be. But how if we don't know that he's not there, how do we know if we what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Why be so fundamental about it? It's like
there's an
what
arrogance.
Do you know?
And evangelical too. What is his stand-up comedy except trying to convert? And Bill Maher too. Bill Maher made a huge movie called Religulous, basically making fun of religion. And what's he trying to do but to persuade and convert people to his way of seeing things? So that there's a lot of shadow stuff here. In the Jungian sense, like what you don't like about what you reject in yourself, you're going to judge in other people.
There's in that sort of anger or in that sort of convertism, I don't know if that's a word, but it feels there's also sort of a bit of suppression or whatever it is. That some stuff that can't be, I don't know. It's a shame because I was so with him, and then I lose him. But
the atheist doth protest too much.
Yeah.
It reminds me of this great quote from a Canadian novel called The Manticore. I think it was from that one. It's from a trilogy by Robertson Davies. And a guy is talking to his therapist. And this is not about God, but it applies just as well. He's talking about what a great guy his father was. And the therapist exclaims, "My God, you're a fanatic." And the guy says, "That's a rather unprofessional outburst, don't you think?" And the therapist says, "Not at all. Don't you know what fanaticism is? It's an overcompensation for doubt."
Yeah, it's so sort of it comes across almost a bit juvenile, where you're like,
yes, it does.
Wait a minute. Just before, because if you then listen to people like Michael Singer, for example, I don't know if that rings a bell, but
I think I know who that is. Yeah,
he sort of says The world's just a sort of a buildup of stuff building up on each other for 13.8 billion years. Who are you to think that you're just here just for 3 seconds?
Yeah.
What we're all trying to play God in a way,
Absolutely. And you think Ricky Gervais doesn't have a God complex every time he does a Netflix special? I mean, the ego on some of these fundamentalist atheists is, well, that's a whole other story.
But it's interesting because I wish there was a way. 'Cause I'm not verbally strong enough to have a conversation or a discussion with him, but I would love to see a different kind of conversation about that with him, instead of the sort of the defensive, cynical, funny way of looking at it. I think that, when you have Russell Brand and Ricky Gervais, they have had a conversation, I think, together about that stuff, which is interesting.
Yeah, well, Brand is a he's capable of complex thinking, and he's also capable of taking people in good faith. And he's interviewed my dad and my brother, and he is curious, and he has strong opinions, but he doesn't put his opinions front and center. He puts his questions front and center.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think that puts him above Ricky Gervais in terms of being a useful voice in the conversation about spirituality. But I'd be interested to hear what the two of them had to say together.
Yeah, because again, like Ricky Gervais, I dream about him once in a while, like that we have a loving relationship and stuff. I have he reminds me of my dad. Maybe it is that sort of atheist kind of vibe. So there's again, the love-hate.
Yeah. I mean, I think he can also be a little bit, am I offending you? Like on other social issues and stuff, like whatever you think about the issues, his attitude towards it can be very, very snotty. But I will always love him for The British Office, which is just one of the greatest things ever created.
Yeah.
You know who said that? Dolly Parton. And people say she's just a pair of tits.
But what I do love about him is that he is, in fact, a very beautiful actor. Like he's so he can be so subtle. When he speaks, he's so fundamental. But when he acts, there's a scene where he's in the Big Brother celebrity house, and he looks at the camera and he talks to his friend who he lost along the way trying to get famous, and he's just pouring his heart out in that Big Brother house to that camera, to her, and he starts crying, and it's so beautiful. So I know that he has this. I know he's a sensitive soul. I know he's a fragile person somewhere, but he doesn't let us. He only lets us see that in his acting, I guess. Well, and fair enough.
And didn't he do a show about ghosts, or at least about grief and
yes,
death?
He did. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
There's a very sensitive person in there, I think. But yeah. Anyway, well, I am slightly obsessed with him in a sort of funny way.
Well, speaking of gods and comics, we have an Elvis Costello song, actually two Elvis Costello songs with God in the title next up. But I think we've been going for a while, and our listeners don't have godlike patience necessarily, or all the time in the universe, shall we say. So why don't we cap it there, call this part one, and we'll do a part two next week.
Yeah. Good idea.
And for those people who would like as much Let's Get Lyrical with Carice and Daniel content as humanly or more than humanly possible, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/Let's Get Lyrical. And one of the perks you get is extended episodes. So you'll get this episode, but with all the stuff that I cut out on the editing room floor. And you'll get a full YouTube version of it, so you can read along with us on the screen, which is really helpful when you're talking about lyrics, among other great perks, which you can read about at the Patreon site. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. If there's an option to like and rate and review, we would really appreciate it. It does wonders for the algorithm. And if there isn't, I'm going to make sure that we get that set up. We are kind of flying by the seat of our pants here, and with God's help, This podcast, this Godcast will go on for a long time. Any final prayers, blessings, Carice, or should we?
I could just call it amen.
Amen.
I'm just going to call it amen.
Let the choir sing. All right. See you next time. God bless you all. Every one of us.
Podcast.